Good morning. It's transfer deadline day, and I think it's fair to say the last couple of days have been considerably busier for Liverpool than most people were anticipating. Luis Diaz has been confirmed, of course, as Liverpool's new number 23. Fabio Carvalho could be next if Liverpool get their way. There could be another few bits of movement in the transfer market as well before 11 p.m. this evening. As you can see, I've got our Liverpool correspondent Paul Gorst alongside me to go through a few bits. I suppose we should probably start, Gorsty, with Luis Diaz, who, of course, was confirmed yesterday. That's all tied up and concluded. And it's a really impressive deal, I think it's fair to say, to get him below his release clause in January.
Yeah, Liverpool really sprung into action last week, possibly around about Tuesday when Tottenham's interest became known. Liverpool had earmarked Diaz as a summer signing. Obviously, they've been looking at one or two others as well. They tend to draw up shortlists, don't they? We've seen it before with the left back search and the forward search that brought Tsimikas and Jota to the club in 2020. And they've probably done the same again with regards to the wide forward search. Jarrod Bowen and Rafinha, certainly two who were being looked at. But Luis Diaz, we were told, was always Jurgen Klopp's first choice. And I think Liverpool felt that he was potentially going to be slipping away once Tottenham made their move. Tottenham obviously looking to do their own business, and Antonio Conte has almost kind of demanded signings from what you read coming out of Tottenham. So once they'd made their offer, I think Liverpool thought that this was a player that was also attracting interest from Manchester United, and rather than let him fall by the wayside and keep looking ahead to the summer months, I think they've changed the tact somewhat and gone in for him this week. So it was a busy few days. Liverpool, what I was told anyway was once it became clear that Liverpool's interest was concrete, that Diaz's agents basically said, look, this is the club that you want to be going to, that this is a team who are on the up and up, and you can become a star at Anfield. And obviously he played at Anfield, hasn't he? He played in, was it November? So he'll know all about what it's like to play at Anfield on a big European night, and no doubt that had a little bit of a sway in his thinking as well. So Liverpool flew a delegation out to Argentina on Friday. David Woodfine, the Loan and Pathways manager, was in that contingent alongside Dr. Jim Moxon, and they've managed to, with the help of the Colombian FA, secure some time in the Colombian team's hotel for the medical. Got it done on Saturday, and then obviously he was confirmed as a Liverpool player on Sunday. So yeah, it's all moved quickly, and there's a little bit of a break from tradition with Liverpool, deviating from the long-term strategy to get him over the line, and then he is as a £50 million new Liverpool addition. And we were saying a couple of weeks back, weren't we, Matt, that when these links were coming off at the start and all, they just didn't feel like a Liverpool move, spending big money in January. Obviously, Virgil van Dijk was the out of the year for that, but you look at Ben Davies, Ozan Kabak, Minamino was a bit of a cut price deal, wasn't he? Stephen Corker, Marco Grujic was loaned straight back to Red Star Belgrade. So Liverpool's history of January dealings, Van Dijk aside, was very much just necessity, short-term, low-risk options, and this is a massive kind of break in tradition for that, but one that was kind of thrust upon them by Spurs, and it just shows you sometimes, doesn't it, that we get questions all the time about Liverpool's plans, and we faithfully do report them as best of our knowledge, but sometimes external factors in football kind of rear their heads and Liverpool have to move, and that is certainly what's happened in this case. So it's been a busy 5 days for Liverpool. Everyone across the club has been all hands on deck trying to get Luis Diaz over the line. He's in, and now attention turns to the future of one in particular incoming, and then several who may be on the move.
Yeah, we might as well come to Fabio Carvalho next. Obviously, one that Liverpool are trying to do after Luis Diaz. I mean, that's the one that most people will want us to be talking about. What's the latest on that one as it stands?
Yeah, well, he's someone who Liverpool have looked at for a while, really. No surprise to hear that. England youth international, who's already played 4 times in the Premier League for Fulham. He's been a big star of their title push this season in the Championship. So Liverpool, along with several others, have been keeping an eye, and he's out of contract as well, isn't he? So I think that was another big thing. Liverpool are always looking to keep an eye on the best up-and-coming talent in the country. Kay Gordon was a perfect example of that, and going back a few years earlier at Fulham, Harvey Elliott was another big example of that. So yeah, no surprise to hear. It was a couple of weeks ago that Liverpool were keeping tabs on him, but they decided to significantly step up that interest. They made an offer, I believe, to be around £5 million. Liverpool, people at the club were telling me yesterday that they're making what they believe is a fair offer. They won't be held to ransom. They're not going to pay over the odds because this is a player who is out of contract, but they don't want to kind of sour relations with Fulham. They haven't spoken to his representatives at the moment. He's got no agency at the moment, actually. So he's basically dealing with, you're dealing with his parents and his brothers, I believe. So Liverpool yet to speak to them, as we understand, basically looking to thrash things out with Fulham. And I think what might sweeten this deal is the idea that they can loan him back to Fulham for the rest of the season, because Fulham might look at it and think, well, we don't want to lose him now in January because he's probably more valuable to us for the next 5 months, getting us promoted back to the Premier League for all the money that can bring. So I think Fulham would rather he stayed. So, that might sweeten the deal if Liverpool say, well, look, we'll bring him in. You can have £5 million for him now and keep him until the end of the season. So it's effectively a £5 million deposit to get him in the summer, if you like. But there were one or two suggestions yesterday that, because he's so in demand, that a pre-contract agreement with a club abroad is also another thing that Liverpool are slightly concerned about. They don't want to go to a tribunal, at absolutely last resort, I believe. Might even completely put Liverpool off that deal if that's the only option, because I think they went through it with Harvey Elliott a few years ago, and don't think it's particularly a dignified thing, I suppose. I think it might be, relationships soured if that is the case. So Liverpool, everything I was hearing yesterday is they're desperate to avoid the tribunal, trying to do things the right way as they see it. So there is an offer in with Fulham with the option to loan him back until the end of the season. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be an interesting few hours.
It certainly is. We'll keep you updated, of course, with all of those things as soon as we can. There's a few other players to go through as well in terms of sort of outgoings. I mean, we'll split them into two groups. The attackers first, obviously, with Luis Diaz and potentially Carvalho as well. It sort of begs the question of what happens with Minamino and Origi. So what's the latest with those two players as it stands?
Yeah, well, when the Diaz news was coming out, I was asking around and I was saying, well, what does this mean for Origi and Minamino? And basically, what was coming back was nothing. Essentially, this deal is independent and is not dependent on anyone leaving. But it was kind of a little bit of a caveat to suggest that if Liverpool were to receive a good offer for either of those two today, then it's something that they're going to look long and hard at. Origi's into the final few months of his contract, and a bit like Carvalho or Fulham, Liverpool might see Origi between now and the end of the season as potentially more valuable to them than letting him go this month on a bit of a cut price deal, because, as he's proven before, he can come up with big goals and big moments, and how valuable could another one or two of those be between now and the end of the season? But if you do kind of get an offer that exceeds what his valuation might be at this stage, then as I say, it's something they'll look at. I think Minamino is possibly someone who's a little bit more at risk of leaving the club this month. Leeds United, one of them after him. Monaco, I believe, as well. Just hasn't really worked for him, has it? In the 2 years as a Liverpool player, he come in a little bit of a cut price deal. I think Liverpool took advantage of a little bit of a release clause thing there and thought, we'll bring him in, see how he does, see if he can adapt to the play, and if he does, we've got the poster boy for Japan football who can play in a number of positions, who's really kind of emerging. And if not, Liverpool can make the money back on them. And I think if he is to leave today, Liverpool will, looking for around about something, probably 3 times that 7 million value, to be honest. But remains to be seen whether other clubs see that as valuable. But yeah, I think if we're saying that one of them was to leave today, I'd be more confident in it being Minamino, but we'll see. As I say, Liverpool are adamant that Diaz's arrival doesn't mean anything for either of those two or anyone else for that matter. But as we say, these things pick up pace late in the day. It was last year Southampton rang up about Nico Williams and came away with a Takumi Minamino. Sometimes things can change, and we've certainly seen that over the last few days with Diaz. So it'll be interesting.
Certainly will. Plenty of things still to happen, I'm sure, across the rest of the day. You mentioned there Nico Williams, who's another one that was on the list, him and Nat Phillips in the defence. I think a lot of people would have thought that Nat Phillips might have moved on already before deadline day, to be honest. But what's the kind of expectation with those two players?
Well, on Phillips, Liverpool were looking for somewhere between 12 and 15 million, but that's going back well over a month now. I think at this stage, if they are going to get a cash fee for him, they might have to reluctantly accept a few million less than that. Newcastle were interested, but then they've just gone and bought Dan Burn for a similar fee to what Liverpool were looking for. I think it was 13 million from Brighton. Burnley have been credited with an interest. Club in Italy who said to be after him. He was, the last I heard, a player who was massively in demand. But as time ticks away, Liverpool's bargaining position is weakened slightly if they are determined to get rid of him this month. And I believe that the player is probably looking to move on. He's barely played this season, as he deserves to be playing week in, week out somewhere. He's certainly good enough to do so. So I think Liverpool might have that probably working against them. What they do have on their side is the fact that he signed a new contract in August, so there is no real pressure to sell him if they don't want to leave, let him leave. I think it might be a little bit of a case of goodwill for what Phillips did for the club last year and allowing them to leave today. But if they absolutely don't want him and they do feel that they can get a decent fee for him in the summer, then that could also be an option. So it's certainly an interesting one with him. I couldn't really, nail colours to the mast for what's going to happen with him today. With Phillips, he's cut short a break in Dubai because Bournemouth are interested. They've spoken about taking him on loan. Liverpool are open to loaning him out. They think that if he was to join a championship club pushing for promotion, that could really, get some valuable game time for him. But speaking to someone on the other side of the fence this morning, it seems that Bournemouth are already pretty well stocked with right backs. So, another one, could go either way with him. So I think it's a bit of a rarity, isn't it, for Liverpool going into deadline day with so many plates spinning and so many things uncertain. There's also Loris Karius. What could happen with him? He's been looking for a club for, best part of 2 or 3 years now, let's be fair, and he's still at Liverpool. So is this the month when he finally leaves? We'll see. But a lot to happen in the next, 13 hours? 13 and a quarter, yeah. So, keep an eye on the Echo's website, I suppose it would be the advice.
Yeah, absolutely. All the updates across the Echo's website, liverpool.com and Blood Red, as soon as we have them throughout the day. Plenty more content to come, but for now, I think that will just about do us. We'll see you next time.